we're going to be covering plumbing tips and tricks. And as Caitlin said, I'm Mark Siebert. I'll be your host on this whirlwind tour of the Revit for Fab plumbing and tips and tricks. I just give a little bit of history about myself. I have a degree in production management from Ball State, and I've been working in the MEP space for over 35 years. In the last 20 of those years, though, I've been in the BIM process and mainly focusing on the slope pipe, even though I'm a sheet metal guy. I specialize in Autodesk fabrication products as well as Revit and Navisworks, and some of you might have had me with a Revit for Fab class or even going through some of the fabrication database. My past experience, I was a business owner of a sheet metal company up in northern Indiana that was both fabrication as well as installation. And I also owned a BIM company in the turn of the century in 2000 that was just a hired gun. I would go work for contractors and help them resolve their BIM issues. I'm a certified instructor with Autodesk, and my expertise is implementing and designing a BIM process and workflows, as well as expertise in cost controls and SMEP specialists for the fabrication product. Today, what we're going to want to cover is we're going to kind of go over our top issues that we've been seeing come through in our support desk. I thought that this would be a great place since we've been having some questions coming in on slope pipe and different questions of how to do things. So we're going to hit the top two issues in support. The first one being understanding the angle of deflection in the fabrication database. A lot of people don't understand that when you're working with slope pipe in Revit, it's actually a setting in your fabrication database that allows your risers to kick into a 90-degree angle instead of coming off at a sloped angle, since we're running all of our pipe as slope. The other feature that we want to get into is we want to get into talking about placing a point on a floor drain. We're not going to do it on a floor drain. Actually, we're going to do it on a storm drain, but it's going to be the same process of just adding a point to a family and then using that family to capture points for your total station. So we'll go through that process. When we're done with that, we're actually going to come in here and get to working in Revit, going over slope pipe a little bit. There's some features in there that you can see your elevations right away. You can change your slope on the pipe without having to go up to the ribbon. Just want to briefly go over that. While we're in the Revit model, we're going to be working with slope pipe. So we're going to run out a storm drain system using the engineer's drawings, and then we're going to run another storm drain system, not using the engineer's drawing, but actually getting rid of it and doing a little bit of value engineering to save some fittings. And I just wanted to show you the speed difference of doing it the two different ways. So with that being said, the first thing that I'd like to go into is our angle of deflection and talking about that. So let me just exit out of there. And coming into our angle of deflection, I'm actually in our fabrication database. And in order to explain this in the right manner, there's two places that need to be checked for any slope pipe. So looking at the service, there's actually going to be an ignore fitting angle tolerance checkbox right here. And on slope pipe, in most cases, this will be unchecked. Okay. Now, this is just saying that if we want to use that angle tolerance or not. But the actual angle tolerance is set up in the item itself. So I'm just going to go to the short sweep elbow, click on Edit, and open it up. Now, the short sweep elbow will have all the fitting dimensions set up for a common fitting. In this case, it's a Charlotte short sweep. In the Options tab is where we're going to find that angle tolerance. The angle tolerance is right here. And what it's trying to tell you is that even though this is a 90-degree elbow, this elbow could actually be at a 92 degrees or at an 88-degree elbow, depending on what it needs to do to make the pipe turn vertical on a riser. Okay. One of the reasons that this is coming up is if some people try to use your 8th bend or even a 16th bend, and you notice that that's set up for 22.5 degrees, but if you draw it, it could actually be a 20-degree elbow because of the 2-degree angle off tolerance. Now, one of the things that we are noticing in our database for Origin is that these shorter angles, or the smaller bends, the 16th bends or the 8th bends, they are not going to be set up in a vertical riser right away. So you might want to turn these angle tolerances off, but still have them work for your 90-degree elbow. Now, we're going to get into Revit here, and I'm actually going to show it to you working. So right here under storm drain, I've got another storm drain that's called overflow. And when I go into that service, notice that I do not have it checked. I'm actually going to check this one. So we're going to ignore the 2-degree change for the short sweep elbow and the quarter bend. And we'll show you what that's going to do in Revit right now. Okay, so I'm just going to say okay here. And I'm just going to actually minimize and go right into Revit. Now, the first thing I need to do in Revit is I need to refresh my install of my database because I just changed my storm drain overflow to ignore the angle deflection. As soon as I've updated it, these are all live now. I can say okay. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to flip over into a 3D view so that way we can kind of see it right here. If I were to draw, actually let's do it this way. Let's put a sectional view in here. And we'll just draw it right here. Get the sectional view set up, and I don't need it that far out. Let me just minimize this a little bit so we're inside the room. Now what we're going to do here is I'm just going to right click and go to this view so that way I have it open. So right here is my view of the section of what we're going to be working on. Okay, right here you can see the pipes coming from underground. It's going to be shooting up, and right here's the riser. Now again, what I want to show you is the difference between the storm drain with angle deflection and the one without angle deflection. So the first one I'm going to do is just a normal storm drain. I'm just going to come over here and throw in a piece of 4-inch pipe. Make sure that I have my slope going up. Actually, let's just do it this way. Just draw it in here real quick. There's my pipe. And let's just throw this on with some slope here. And now I've got a pipe with slope. Okay. Now, if I put on this short sweep elbow right here, and I turn it up, and now I put this piece of pipe on the back side of it, and I just let it draw, notice how that's going up at a straight 90-degree angle. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over here and do that exact same process. I'm just going to draw a short piece of pipe right here. And I'll get it pretty close so it overlaps itself a little bit. And I'm going to come in here and just change this slope back to a 1/4 inch. Whoops. 1/4 inch. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that same short sweep elbow right here, and I'm going to spin it up. Now I'm going to add a piece of pipe to this, and now watch what happens to that pipe. Notice how that angle of deflection has been turned off, and now this riser is not going to be in a vertical upright position. So again, a very important thing, and a lot of people that are moving to Revit for fabrication, trying to use the Autodesk database right away if you didn't have a fabrication database, these are some of the little things that affect you in Revit when you're doing Revit for fab drawing with the database. And again, this is just the angle of deflection. Okay. 2 places just to flip back into this database real quick again. If you want to, you can come into any fitting that has an elbow on it, and it will actually give you that angle of deflection. So you can override this at any time. You can zero it out on the smaller radius or the smaller elbows, the 16th bends, the 8th bends. I think we even had an elbow that was a 10-inch or a 15-degree bend or a 12.5 degree or something like that. And it would come on in as 15 degrees. Well, again, these are for offsets, and your riser is usually going to be with either a 40 or 8th bend or a 45 degree or with a 90. So these two, we definitely need to have that angle of tolerance set. So now that we've gone through and shown you how angle of tolerance does affect your sanitary drawings, the next thing that I'd like to get into is just adding a point, a simple point to a family, okay? And the way I'm going to do it is I copied over an engineer's model into this project, and I have these storm heads sitting right here, already pre-positioned, all piped up. What I'm going to do here is I'm just simply going to come here and double click on that first storm head. Notice that the family opens up. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this family to my local drive, so that way I have a copy of this for future use. So I'm just going to come up here to File, Save As a Family, and I'm actually going to drive over to my Documents folder under Zern Carriers, and yes, I did have a floor drain already called out as Roof Drain MS, but I'm going to overwrite this so that way I'm here and it's going there. Do you want to replace it? Yes. So right here, I actually have that storm drain. Again, it's been renamed as Roof Drain MS. Now, what I'm going to do here is the first thing I need to do is insert a point that the total station can read. Now, I'm going to use our product called Evolve Mechanical to do this. We actually give a Trimble point out. If you have other third-party software, look for their point, and you can add their point if you need to your Revit for Fab database. So first thing I need to do is I need to insert a family for that Revit point. If I click on this family right here, notice I do not have a point. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to just insert right in my family, load the family, and I'm going to come into my Evolve Mechanical Revit 2021 resource families for Evolve. I'm going to come all the way down that list, and right there I have an EV point.rfa. And I'm just going to open that up into this model or into this family. And as you can see in the families in the project browser, I've got my EV point. Now, my EV point comes preloaded with 5 points already. I got a center line point, control points, layout points, sleeve points, okay? Well, this is going to be a drain point. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it, I'm going to make a brand new type, and I'm going to call this drain point, just like that. So as soon as I have my drain point, now I'm going to place it on my family right here where my pipe's coming into the storm drain head, okay? So I'm just going to left click on it, hold it, bring it over, and then I'm just going to zoom right in and make sure I've got it right on this insertion point right there. And I'm going to left click. As you can see, the point is there. I'm going to cancel out of this twice. There's my point. Okay, if I need to, I can come out, look at it from a front view. I should be able to see that point right in here as well. Just make sure that the point is set. Oops, it looks like my point got way set off here, so let's just redo this one more time. Make sure that I got my point set up right. Come in here, and we're going to snap it. Get into my ISO, and we're going to snap it right here. So again, I just want to make sure I've got my point setting in the middle of that drain, okay? Then, after I'm done setting the point, now I have to make the parameters for this point, okay? It's important. All we've done is set an image to show where the point is. So we're going to come in here and we're actually going to look at creating a shared parameter that this point will read. So the very first step I'll do after I place the point is I'm going to come up to my Manage tab for the family, and I'm going to click on Shared Parameters. Now, since I'm using Evolve and I have it loaded, I'm actually going to put my shared parameter data in my custom data, so that way I know where it's at the entire time. I click here, into my custom data, and I'm just going to click on new. I don't have my roof point. Oh, I do. Let me get rid of that one. Sorry, when I was practicing, I thought I had it all cleared out. So when I come in here, I'm going to click on a brand new parameter. And this parameter I'm going to call roof underscore drain underscore DESC for description. I'm going to come here and call it a type of parameter as text. And I'm going to say OK. I'm going to make one more parameter. I'm going to make another one. I'm going to call this one roof underscore drain underscore, let's just call it PT for point. And I'll say OK there. So now I have my two parameter values that I can associate to the point I've just placed. I'm going to come back in here and say OK. Now I'm going to click on that point one more time. In the point, notice my EV point, I have a layout point description, a layout point ID. And then the nested point will be looking at those points, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my shared parameter come into this layout point description. So I'm going to click that little box right there, and I'm going to associate a family property. I'm going to left click on it. Notice that I do not have that roof drain description here yet. So I'm going to have to come down here and make a new parameter, and I'm going to actually find it in my shared parameter file. If I select it, come to my Fabrication custom data, and slide all the way down to the bottom. Right there's my roof drain description I just created a couple minutes ago. I'm going to say OK to this. I'm going to make it an instance. I'm still reading it as a text, and I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say OK one more time, and when I set this up, notice that I get an equal sign right there. I've associated a parameter to my layout point description. Now, I also need to lay out a parameter for my point ID. So I'm going to do the exact same step. Click on the associated family parameter. I'm going to come over here. It is not here. Click on new, look at shared, come to select, look at my custom data group, and right here is my point. I'm going to add that on. Oops. Did I not change that as a text parameter? Did I mess this up already? I'm pretty certain properties. Yes, I did. I did do this wrong. Let me go do that. Yes. And I'm just going to create a brand new roof drain point. And don't forget to change it this time. Call it out as text. Say OK. Now I have that point. I can say OK here. And let me go to the shared parameter one more time. Come here to the custom data. And there's that point and say OK. So I've got the point. It's a text file. I'm going to go to instance. And I'm going to say OK. Now, remember, we're making this equal this point, so I'm going to say OK to this as well. So you notice I have an equal sign and an equal sign here. The next thing I need to do is right here is being, what is the description called? We just defined it up here. All I have to do is type in roof underscore drain underscore DSC. And down here, I'm going to make this my point, ROF underscore drain underscore PT. And I'm going to say apply. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load this into the project. Let me see if this will load and save it. Last time I had an error here. Let's hope that it comes in. It comes in. This one should be set up to be my MS drain, and if it isn't, I'm going to actually right click here. I'm going to select all instances as a instance of it in the view, and I'm going to click on this and go to my MS drain right there. Now I have those points set, and those 2 points should be firing. So the way I can test it right away is I'm going to go up to my Evolve Mechanical, and I'm going to test for a point real quick. I'm just going to click on it, points per view. And right here I have some points made up. Notice that it's saying roof drain MS, just like what I named it. So my points are coming through, and there's my 2 points that I have set up. And all it was doing was these 2 overflow roof drains that I was did the select all to in that view. Okay. At this point, I can come in here, add my points. You got to check those points there. Add those points. Say okay, and right away I have something that I can throw out to the total station. So that's the process of adding a point to a family to be able to use it to find a total station point. Okay. Now, the second and last thing that I want to cover here in the last 20 minutes is I just want to go through the process of drawing some above ground pipe. We've been going through the process of showing you underground, showing a wet wall of doing some prefab on our wet wall. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, since you've signed up to this webinar, please look at our library of webinars. You get to look at every single webinar we've done in the past. And about 2 years ago, we did a slope pipe Revit webinar. We also did it at MEP Force. If you guys want to get a little bit more information on doing a wet wall, putting in carriers, sleeving, running all that pipe out, please take a moment to look at that past webinar. In this webinar, we're going to be on the above ground, as I said earlier. The first thing I want to show you is I want to show you what it's going to look like just converting out an engineer's drawing. Now, over here, we're going to use this as our conversion, okay? So, as most people know, when you're looking at a drawing from an engineer, they usually will draw it flat. So what I want to do here is I'm just going to get rid of this sectional view, and I'm going to show my view tiled so that way we can see both sides working at the same time. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit tab once. I'm going to hit tab twice. Now notice that I grabbed everything, and I don't want everything. So I'm just going to break this pipe right here. I'm just going to shrink it a little bit so it's disconnected. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tab, tab, and notice that I've got everything tabbed out over here to the left, okay? So this is the one we're going to use our design fab to. I'm going to left click on it. All my pipe is selected. I'm going to come over here to filter. I'm going to make sure I don't have that one selected. Apply, say okay. So there we go. I don't want those roof heads. I'm going to come up here to design to fab. I'm going to pick my storm drain. This is the one that is all set up for that slope. It's going to run the conversion through. Right away, as soon as it converts it, notice how it comes in. It took out my combination here. It rotated the combination here to go to that drain, and it didn't even add the combination here. So as you can see, it's a matter of having to clean it up. But also remember, there's no slope on this pipe. Okay, so besides having to clean up and get the right fittings in here, we also have to change this to a slope system. So what I'm going to do here very quickly is I'm just going to get rid of this pipe right here. Come on here, delete that, delete this out. And now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stretch this out, and I'm going to select this pipe right there, left click. I'm going to make slope to it. And notice that I've got my slope arrow here. I can control it, so I can say that this is going to be my low point, or if this is going to be my low point, I want this to be my low point. I'm going to say I would like to have 1/4 inch slope. Actually 1/8 inch slope. This is 4-inch pipe, I'm pretty certain. Let me double check that here. Tells you how well I know my model here. It is 3-inch pipe, so we're going to do 1/4 inch slope. So I'm glad I checked that. I'm going to come back up here, change my slope, get my arrow pointing in the right direction. Change this to 1/4 inch slope. Come back up here, hit finish. And now I should have slope on the main pipe, okay? Here, notice it says 1/4 inch slope. It's coming up. Here in my elevation view, I can see it coming up. And let me just change this view over here to be more in a fine mode so that way everything looks the same. So right here we have it, slope. Slope is on this pipe as well. Now what I can do is I can actually kick these in. Now, one of the things most trainers will show you is go to modify here and use our trim extend. But if you notice, if I use the trim extend here, notice that it didn't connect because we're too low with the pipe. This is all drawn as flat. So the first thing you have to do is you have to make sure that these pipes will intersect. So I actually will draw it across, come back in my elevation view, and let me get the right pipe. And I'm actually going to use my arrow to bring it up. And remember, I have to slope this pipe too. So this pipe has to be sloped at 1/4 inch as well. Notice that the slope stayed and I'm still in the middle of that. I can now come here, bring this back through, and I should be able to use that trim extend now. It still didn't come in, so what I'm going to do is, I'm tired of playing with this, come to the combination, insert the part, rotate it around, make sure I'm lining it up, left click, switch that part. I was in the wrong one. There we go. Perfect. Insert the part. And this is why I love doing a live webinar. So right there, I'm going to line this up, left click on it. It inserts it, but I meant to change that to a 3x3. Just like that. Apply. Now, notice that that's still too low. Okay, so I'm going to have to even bring that up higher. So note, and this is one of the things I do like about Revit that you can't do in AutoCAD. Right there, I just select that pipe, and I'm just going to bring it on up. Make sure that I've got it at the right elevation. Now I can make sure that I'm going to connect this pipe. I'm just going to snap it to that, hold my shift key, make sure it's connected, release. It's all connected up, got that line done, and I'm going to do this one real quick as well. So as you can see, even though I've got a engineer's model and it converted it, you still have some cleanup to do. And that's one of the things that we always have to go through with any kind of sanitary pipe. You always have to go through and clean up what the engineer has given you. Oh, that actually went the wrong way. So let me change that. Get that slope back to 0 and rechange that slope. Come back over here, put slope to that pipe. It's coming out that way, 1/4 inch, say finish. There we go. And now I'm going to bring this back. So I think we've shown you the example of, okay, this is the steps that we need to do. Insert this part, make this go 3x3, insert the part, there we go. And as you see, I've got a little bit of graphics issue going on here. Left click, change that to 3x3, and I'm good. And then all I have to do is reconnect this up. Come here. I'm a little bit high still, so I just got to bring it down a little bit. I do love using my arrows a lot, if you haven't noticed. It's just a great tool to get that little bit of small moves. So right here, as you saw, I've got this all ran out. Now I can actually run that connection back to my T once I convert this, okay? So as you see, that took me 10 minutes just to do this little storm drain, okay? What I want to do now is I'm going to do the exact same thing on this longer route, but what I want to do is I'm going to draw it freehand. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm just going to, sorry about that, cancel that. Didn't think I grabbed that way. I'm going to just take all this and I'm going to delete it. Now I know I have a 3-inch pipe coming from this point and I'm going to be drawing it over here, but I'm going to do a little bit of value engineering on it. When I drew this out, I don't really like it being over here unless I have a hanger point. I might feel more comfortable if I have the room to put it right underneath the actual storm heads and just look right up into them. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to come in here very easily. I'm going to pick my storm drain and I'm going to hit multi-point routing. Now my multi-point routing, I'm going to make sure my slope is turned on right away, and I have it going up at 1/4 inch. If I come over here to my properties, notice that I'm at 0 right now. So I'm just going to come here, change this to 3. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click right on that point. Notice that it kicked me down to 8 foot 9 inches right away. So right away, I'm starting at a center point, and it should be 3 inches. So what happened there? Apply. There we go. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this out. I'm going to draw all the way over here, just like that. And I'm going to right click and cancel. So right there, you actually see that it's drawn it in slope pipe right away. Okay. So it's slope pipe all the way over to that spot. The first thing I want to do is I'm just going to lift this up just so that way I'm close to that cross right there. So at least I've got everything set up on this side, making sure I'm at a good starting elevation. And I'm just going to take it right about there. And I'm not, yeah, let's do this. Let's take this back just so that way we have a good starting point. Now, over here, now remember, I'm going to try to take out a couple fittings here. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to actually run my fitting right from here. So I'm going to say I've got a brand new run. It's going to be 3-inch pipe. I'm going to have my slope on again. I'm going to actually take it from here. Come here, and let's get this point right here and bring it all the way out. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to line it up right under those heads. So I'm just going to click right there. Notice that it automatically snapped onto that point because I started at my center line. I'm just going to use my arrows to bring it over a little bit. So now I'm kind of lined up underneath it. Take it a little bit more right there. So now I've got to run. I've got one combination. I had a combination here no matter what. So I'm still equal on fittings. While I'm here, I'm just going to come here very quickly, put in a blind plug here. So that way I have a hanger that I can attach to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come and put in these heads here. So I'm going to do that in my elevation view. I'm just going to rotate this to a different view. So right here, you can actually see there's my pipe that I'm drawing in, okay? Here's my 2 storm heads that I'm going to be connecting to it. So right off the bat, I can actually get rid of that little part right here. And we're just going to get rid of this. I'm not worried about my water piping right now. And I'm actually even going to get rid of this part right here as well. So now there's one pipe coming down from my storm head, and here's my other pipe. Cancel. Come on. Yeah, I know. Just let it go. So we've got our 2 pipes. We're getting ready to throw in our T's. So right away, I'm just going to raise this up a little bit so I'm above my pipe. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make a simple modify, trim, extend, pick my main. Oh, look, I can't pick that branch now. Okay, so again, can't use the tool that I'd like to. Just come into your combination, insert the part, and right there, I'm going to tab this so it's in upright position, and I'm going to move this so it's kind of lined up. Right there. I'm going to change this fitting to a 3x3 because it's one of the worst habits I have. I keep forgetting to change it. And now, all I'm going to do is bump this fitting to line it up. Come here, and I'm actually going to snap this to this point here. Come on. Get rid of the pipe. And I'm going to actually just draw it in here and be done with it. So if I get this into a sectional view, let's get this back into my ortho mode. Come on. Having a lot of fun here today. I get back in my ortho mode, I can actually get this pipe and draw it in a vertical riser. Yep. Mark's going to have that kind of fun today because this isn't the way you planned it. So I'm just going to come in here, stick in a piece of pipe so that way it's sticking all the way up through it so I can see it. I can do that same thing. I can make a copy of this if I want to. I can drop in another combination. I'm actually going to drop that in with a 3-inch insert. I'm going to get this in an upright position, drag it into place. Come on, snap on that pipe. Click on that. Now I'm going to move this. I'm using my down arrow actually to move in an isometric mode. Once I've got it lined up, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of that pipe. I'm going to put another piece of no-hub in, let it run all the way up so I'm coming through it, and put my clean out right there with my plug. And now I'm in a position to draw in hangers and get the rest of my pipe converted. So that one took a total of 5 minutes. So I love being able to use design to fab to convert any sanitary pipe. But the one thing you have to remember is sanitary pipe is always, in most cases, going to come over from the engineer in a flat mode. If it does come in a flat mode and you're going to need to do a little work, sometimes what I will do in my practice is I actually leave the pipe exactly the way the engineer drew it, but I'll come through and start looking at, okay, this is how I'm going to reroute this pipe to save a couple fittings. As you can see on this route here, I took out 2 90-degree short sweep elbows going up into my storm drain. Okay, so right there, I can actually go and see how I can save fittings, save some time, and I redrew it a little bit quicker than I did before. Okay. So with this being said, we've got this all converted. We've shown you the different processes. So just to do a little bit of a quick review of what we covered today. We went in and showed you how a storm drain can be set up to have either understand the slope pipe or not understand the slope pipe with our fabrication database. By that, we came in here and showed you how our fabrication database has the button control or our controls to allow for slope pipe to come into a vertical riser straight so it doesn't pick it up at a pitch. Okay. Great process in Revit. Back in 2018 when they were getting this all worked out, that was one of our issues. It's not an issue anymore. It actually works quite well. Also remember on slope pipe in our database, we're always going to have this ignore fitting angle tolerance set up. Okay. The other thing that we covered is we covered how to generate a point on these storm heads. Cancel this out. So right here, this point is set up as my storm drain, and that is covering a point that is going to be able to be exported out to a total station. So right here, very quickly, made points on my families. I created the parameters, and now we have that all done. Once we have that, we went through the process of actually doing a design to fab in an engineer's model and then doing it without the engineer's model. Okay, so it's just one of those things that right here I'm showing you it's faster to actually draw this sanitary pipe out than having to come through, convert it, spin around our different angles for our slope to get things to work right. Okay, so that's what we've covered here in Revit for Fab today.